Hey, what's up guys? It's Will Bowman with People Project Media. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about 8 tips that you can use, that creatives can use to deal with failure and rejection. 8 tips that creatives can use to deal with failure and rejection. So I chose this topic for this morning's live video because this is something that, as a creative professional, I have experienced just today. I woke up this morning to a funnel that had gone live, and there were a couple of things that were wrong with it. One, we did not get amazing open rates on our first email out. We normally, with this client, get about 40 to 60% email open rates, and today we got 10 to 15% open rates. So that was not a good way to start the morning at 4:30 this morning. And that was tough. I've spent the last 4 days building this funnel, put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it. Well, maybe not tears, but just a lot of labor into it. And it was tough. It was not easy. And I was really happy with how it turned out. And so when the first moment that it got out into the world was not a good one, that was really tough, and I was really frustrated. The other issue that we had was there was a problem with the website a little bit. Right when I woke up, at least it seemed like it, I had to go in and do a little bit of troubleshooting on the site because there were some problems with the caching. And I don't know how many people or how many visitors to the site from the email actually experienced it. Maybe 0, maybe some, I'm not sure. But long story short, it was really a tough morning for me right when I woke up. Just because, like I said, I had worked really hard on this thing, and it didn't do well in its first emails. Now we have a couple more emails going out, which I'm hoping are going to have better open rates later on this week and early next week. But it still didn't hit. It still didn't really. It still was just really tough to have it right in the morning. So that got me thinking, and it got me practicing on ways to deal with creative failure. And I figured that for today's live video, I would sit here with you and talk about creative failure while I drank my coffee, because this is something I hear from a lot of creatives that I talk to. The frustration of dealing with creative failure and rejection, because creativity is a very personal profession. Like I tell my wife all the time, you can't, as a creative, just go to work and put in the hours. If you're going to be a good creative, you have to be willing to invest yourself into what you're doing. And not just like yourself as in like your time, but like your sense of self, your emotions, your likes, your dislikes, your input, your personality, your opinions. It requires something of you, and then it requires you to take that and to put it in front of people for thumbs up, rejection, or acceptance. And so that's not easy as a creative. And I'm not saying that just to play my own violin, but I know a lot of creatives who really struggle with this aspect, and I think it's valid. So that being said, over the past 5 years, I have failed a couple times here and there, more often than not, probably. Well, that's probably not the case, but there have been definitely some failures in there. And so over the years, I've learned some really solid techniques for being able to deal with those that I wanted to share with you today, in hopes that maybe someone who's just starting or someone who's really struggling with creative rejection and failure could learn to deal with it and work with it in a way that's healthy and generative and leads to better outcomes next time, right? So here are my 8 tips that you can use when you experience creative rejection. So the first tip is to accept that it's going to happen. As creatives, we will fail, we will get rejected, and it will hurt. Because we put ourselves into our work, it's not as easy as someone rejecting our slideshow that we put together saying, oh, well, go back and do some polishing, or maybe slideshow is a bad example, our Excel spreadsheet, right? There's pieces of us in it, and when we get kickback, it sometimes hurts a little bit. So that's the first thing, is accept that it's going to happen. And I want to bring a quote that I found into this, so I'm going to switch over here. So the quote is that you have to be prepared that some opportunities will work out and that others won't, and that's okay. You can't win everywhere. The more opportunities you get, the more rejections you'll receive. It's simply a numbers game. And I liked this quote because it normalized the fact of rejection and failure. It's going to happen. You can't win everywhere. You shouldn't win everywhere, right? If you won everywhere, you'd be God. And we're not God, at least in our particular human iterations right here in this little world, right? We're not perfect. We don't win every time, right? And that's okay. Like he says here, like Jen, she says here, the more opportunities you get, the more rejections you receive, but the more victories that you'll have. It's simply a numbers game. So first tip, accept that it's going to happen and it's going to hurt. And that also helps with the next tip that I have for you, which is to depersonalize it. Depersonalize the failure. Something that a lot of times I think when I'm experienced a problem or a hurdle or an obstacle or a failure is I think of the phrase, fix the problem. As a creative professional, your clients don't want you to wallow in self-guilt. When there's a failure in something you create or a miscommunication or whatever that failure is, they want the problem fixed. And clients want you, they don't want to work with someone who never fails, but they want to work with someone who knows how to deal with it when they do fail, when there is a miscommunication, when there is a product that they don't like, right? So the quickest way to get to the point of dealing with the issue is to depersonalize it. The failure is not you as a person. It is something that you've done or something that you've created or something outside of your control sometimes, right? So it's not you, it's a problem. It's not you as a person. A lot of times as creatives, because we put so much of ourselves into our work, we feel like when we get rejected, it's us. We are a bad artist. We are a bad creative. But it says nothing about our value. It may just say something about our skill set. Maybe we just didn't have the skill set to tackle this project. Or maybe it said something about the implementation. Maybe there was a mistake that we made in the implementation. All these things you can learn from and you can change and you can put in place systems and skills to be able to deal with. If I'm just a bad artist or if I don't have any value, that's not something I can fix or change. So not only is it not true, it's also not fixable, leaving you with nothing but to be depressed, which is what happens a lot of time as a creative artist. So that's number 2. So the first 2 are accept it's going to happen, and second, depersonalize it. Take it outside of it being you and being something, a system, a problem, a skill that needs to be dealt with. Number 3, practice good mental and emotional hygiene, or in other words, coping mechanisms. This is so important as a creative professional, as you're going to be working in this industry where creative rejection is common and frequent. As a creative professional, you need to develop habits and practices that are going to help you ride the waves of the emotional turbulence that will come with the highs and the lows of being a creative professional. For me, that's my morning centering prayer practice. I can't count the amount of times that has helped me to be present and centered in a day when something happened or a failure happened. Sometimes, after an extremely or particularly big problem, I'll take time and I'll go and I will do my practice to help me to reset and center from experiencing the powerful emotions. It's what I did this morning. I was frustrated, I was angry, I was sad, whatever it was, I said, stop, I'm going to go, I'm going to practice do my centering prayer for 10 minutes. That helped me. Just that simple sitting down and doing my practice helped me to recenter myself and to deal with the problem in a generative way, and to see the grand scope of things and the fact that we have 2 more emails going out And I've learned something from the situation already that can help me to shift those and tailor those so I get a better outcome. So I don't know what that is for you. Is it exercise? Is it having a cup of coffee? Is it going for a walk? Is it calling someone who you know is safe and a healthy person that's going to give you generative feedback? Whatever that is, develop those habits and use them in the moments where you have creative failure and you're feeling yourself going into a frustrated, disempowered state. Use them to help you approach the failure generatively and constructively. All right, next tip. This is number 4. Take time to grieve and reconsider. A lot of times when we put our pieces out there and they get rejected, because we create from our sense of self, there is something that's lost. There's something that, in a very sort of artistic way, is killed or died. And I don't mean that in like a cruel way, like as in my clients are killing me, or the audience that I'm creating for is killing me. I just mean that there's a loss because maybe something that you really liked, the client didn't like, or something you said didn't connect with the audience you were trying to reach. That is a thing that needs to be grieved from and considered with, right? Because when you have a death or when you have a loss, taking time to grieve and to reconsider and to reorient is an essential part of that process. It's the same with creativity. When you have a failure, taking those moments to sit back, relax, and to grieve in those things and to reconsider and reorient is essential to being able to move forward with it in a constructive way. So whatever creative failure that you experience, take 10, take 20, take 5, take 2, whatever that time that you need is to be able to get that process of closure and grieving, take it and you'll be able to move forward in a better way. And sometimes that's individually as an artist, sometimes that's collectively as a group or a company or a department, right? Take that time and you'll be able to move forward. The next tip that I have, number 5, is very similar in that to listen to and learn from it. I'm a runner. I practice or I train for marathons, right? And one thing that I've learned over the years in doing many what we in the running world call workouts or tempo runs or sprints or whatever, they're hard workouts that you do to prepare for the marathon that you're training for, is that you don't always hit them. A lot of times you go to do your workout and you fail. And years ago when I was first starting to train, these used to make me so depressed. It used to make me so frustrated. I was failing all the time. I wasn't hitting my goals, and I'd come home really depressed. You can ask my wife. I'd come in, and I'd be really downcast, and she would say, "What's going on?" Oh, I had a hard run. I had a hard tempo, right? And what I learned from those experiences, though, is that what those failures pointed to was things that needed to be fixed. They were issues in my diet, nutrition, sleep, that needed to be dealt with so that I could perform at a higher level. These days, because I listened to my failures and because I learned from them and implemented different practices, I'm now able to succeed more and feel less awful when I fail a workout. Now I often say, what happened? Was I sick? Did I not eat right? Did I not sleep right? Did I not hydrate? What was going on that caused me to perform that way? I know that I can hit this. I know that I can run this far. I know that I can do this because I've gotten very close. What happened this week that caused me not to be able to do that? It's the same with creativity. When something goes wrong, listen to it. What's it pointing to? What's causing the failure, especially if it's a repeated failure, a pattern failure. Sometimes one-off failures can be explained as a fluke, something out of your control. But if you're seeing repeated failures in a certain area, what is the reason for that? Listen to the pattern and fix the problem. It's not you. Remember, it's not you as an artist or creative. It's something that maybe you don't have a skill, maybe you don't have a system, whatever that is, find that thing and find a way to fix it. The next thing, so we're going to be taking time to grieve and consider, we're listening and learn from it, but don't dwell on it. If you had a goal that you were trying to hit and you came up just short of that goal, or maybe you had a goal and you came up 90% there, right? You didn't quite hit the goal. Don't dwell on that goal. Move on. Set the goal to 120%, 130%, and then you're going to pass that previous goal in the pursuit of your new goal. Don't dwell on the failure. Once you've grieved from it and learned from it, let it go, move on, tackle the next thing. I can't count the amount of running goals that I have hit just by shooting for a bigger goal, even when I failed on them for the first time. Same with creativity. Solve the problem, move on to the next goal. You'll hit the one that you were aiming for in the process. Number 7, practice thankfulness. Something that I learned in a course recently that I thought was very telling is that your brain is focused on getting you to survive. Its job is to protect you, not to make you happy, not to make you fulfilled. This is a very deeply seated and instinctual evolutionary trait that we have. And today, when we don't have the experience of saber-toothed tigers around every corner, or berries we can eat that could kill us around every corner, our brains are constantly in a state of looking for things that could, should, and would be dangers, even if they aren't a real danger to our physical selves. In addition to that, more and more of our ability to survive is based on social fitness, not physical fitness. As such, our brain is constantly trying to find ways to get us to be afraid, to be nervous, to be scared, to be aware, because we don't want to die. We want to survive. Now, that doesn't mean that everything that happens is always as scary as we think it is, right? And one of the quickest ways to be able to sort of reset that little thing in our brain, which is trying to keep us alive and making us nervous, scared all the time and anxious all the time, is to practice thankfulness or some sort of mindfulness. Mindfulness is simply a conscious and an intentional practice of being in the moment. And oftentimes when we think about and we write down or we focus on just a few things that are going well or that we're thankful for, it's enough to kind of reorient us into a more balanced view as opposed to the extremely negative view our brain will often take in its pursuit of survival. For me, that's a 20-minute practice of centering prayer in the morning. I also do a small gratitude journal as part of a creative practice that I'm doing. I've recently been doing that. That's a new thing that I'm doing, and I'm enjoying it. Find whatever that is for you. Drink your first cup of coffee and enjoy that. Have a conversation with your spouse. Take your dog for a walk, right? Practice some sort of thankfulness, and that will help you to weather the times when you're experiencing the ups and downs of creative rejection and failure. So the last tip that I have is, and this is really more of a tip that you should learn from creative failure and rejection, is to have compassion for others who experience it with you. I'm not the only one who fails. There are people in my life who fail. People who work with me who fail. There are people who live with me who fail and get rejected. Because I have experienced it, because I know how difficult it is, that gives me more ability to be compassionate towards people who also experience it. Now, what I'm not saying here is to tolerate it. I'm not saying to coddle people. Say, oh, well, I've experienced failure, so I'm going to leave you here. I'm going to let you keep doing this, even though this isn't maybe the right fit for you. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying to have compassion for them. I'm saying to have empathy for them. Take your own failures and your own rejections and use them to remind you of how that person is feeling in the moment. You yourself don't really want to be coddled and kept in a position that's not good for you. But you also want people to have compassion and empathy and understanding for you where you are right in the moment. In that same way, show that same grace to people who are with you, who fail in some context with you, or who you might reject a piece of their work. Be compassionate, be understanding, and do what needs to be done in a way that's grace-filled and generative for them in their creative journey. I'm going to end with one more quote from a different individual, and I really like it. So let's hop over here. So the quote is, "Rejection is more valuable than an action. All that I've learned until now has been because of rejections. An action didn't teach me a thing." I like, and that's Nerej. Oh man, I am not going to be able to pronounce that right. But and so I'm not even going to try. The book is Procrastinate, the Artist's Guide to Liberation from Procrastination. And what I like about this quote is that it assigns value to rejection. It assigns learning to rejection. Doing nothing, sitting in the fear, doesn't teach you anything. It keeps you safe, but you never grow. In order to grow, in order to keep getting better at what it is you want to do, you have to put yourself out there and risk rejection. Now, I don't necessarily believe everything that I've learned has been because of rejections. I think successes also teach you things. But what I can definitely say is that fear has not taught me anything. Fear would keep me not doing anything and sitting and doing nothing. But being in the world, accepting the reality that rejection and failure may happen, that helps me to grow. And I want to continue growing into a better and better creative professional, as I'm sure you do as well. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this live stream. I hope genuinely that maybe some of these tips might be helpful to you as you go on your journey as a creative professional. I'm going to go out today and I'm going to practice some of these myself in dealing with my own failure this morning, or at least the failure of the thing that I created, or at least the temporary failure of the thing that I've created. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to grieve from it. I'm going to solve the problem, depersonalize it, and I'm going to practice my coping mechanisms and do my best to lead myself and my clients through the creative process of learning, growing, and getting better every single day until we find more and more success, as I would wish for every single one of you. Let me know if there's anything else that you can think of. What are some of your creative coping techniques for failure and rejection? Post them in the comments below. Let me know. I'd love to try them out. This is something that I am very passionate about, being creative and creative systems and processes. So post them in the comments below and let me know so I can try them out. All right, we'll see you next time. Later.